The way that most entrepreneurs try to build an
Here in my
audience
garage.
is fundamentally flawed. When they are creating content for the algorithms, or they are trying to get followers and likes and engagement and attention, that is only one very small part of audience building. And I would argue it is the least important part of audience building. That is, of course, if you want to turn that attention into money. If you are creating the Daily Wire, or you want to be famous, if you want to have a bunch of people know your name, then you probably want to be controversial and create a lot of content and try to go viral and have a whole team that helps you do that. But if your goal is to turn the attention that is out there into something that will support your business now and over the long term, then it requires a very different approach. The good news is you don't have to go viral. You don't have to be controversial. You don't even have to be funny or interesting. You just need to do it very differently than how everybody else is trying to do it. Even in saturated markets, or places that have a bunch of creators, or places that have a bunch of sellers like Amazon.com, if you have even a small but loyal audience that wants to buy your stuff, you can stand out in saturated markets and beat almost all of your competitors. I am not the guy that should be talking about going viral or building a really big audience. That is not my skill set. That is not something that I am good at. It's something that has happened accidentally from time to time, but it's not something that has been predictable for me in my career. In fact, my audience is fairly small in the sea of other people who talk about what I talk about. And that's true with my businesses and the companies that I invest in and advise as well. None of them have particularly large audiences, but they have small, loyal audiences that are very, very profitable. And as a result, I have built several multi-million-dollar companies and had large exits and invested in very prominent, very successful businesses because they had a loyal audience that wanted to buy their stuff. One way to illustrate this is to look at two separate and opposite case studies. The first is an Instagram star known as Ari. Ari was a very prominent young woman who got a lot of attention for reasons that go beyond the context of this video. But Ari had over 2.5 million followers and an engaged audience of hundreds of thousands of people who loved her content and would engage with all of her posts. But when she went to launch an apparel line for her business, she failed to meet the minimum order quantity of 36 shirts. She couldn't sell 36 units of a t-shirt. And believe me, there were more than 36 units following this girl. Compare this to another product that launched in 2009, and this was before the big social media boom. There were no influencers talking about this product. In fact, there was no place to advertise this product to get a whole lot of attention. It launched on a forum called the Peer-to-Peer Foundation, which had a few hundred followers that were engaged and really nerdy about the topic. And over time, that small audience took this product to other prominent influencers who would end up talking about it and putting it on the map. The product that I'm talking about is Bitcoin. Bitcoin did not have a big influencer with millions of followers. In fact, it was started by an anonymous person. It didn't have a whole bunch of content talking about it, but there was one white paper that went through the positives and the vision for this brand new idea. Now, what can we learn from this? Well, first of all, which one do you want to be? Do you want to be a famous person who gets a whole lot of attention but can't sell any product? Or do you want to have an engaged group of people that line up to buy your stuff and become the ambassadors for your product and for your business? Now, most of us are not going to build the next Bitcoin. If you are, shoot me a message. I want to buy a lot of your company. But most of us can agree that what we would like is for customers to line up and buy our stuff, even if we're not famous. even if we're not creating a lot of content. And if we're honest, a lot of us would admit that we don't really want to create a lot of content. We just want to grow our business. And this is what everybody says that we need to do in order to get our business off the ground and growing again. Every single person who is watching this right now can, within their control, and in about 90 days, maybe a little bit longer, have a group of people that is very engaged and paying attention to what they have to say, what they have to share, and what they have to sell. That's within your control. Going viral is not. Every person is like a seed. And what most entrepreneurs or content creators are doing is they're going to the public platforms like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn, and they see this forest that has all of these seeds, all of these people. And when they create content, they get all of these seeds thrown at them. But they never take the seeds and plant them, which means that they never get the seeds, they never take the attention that they're getting from these platforms and nurture them into deep roots. They're gonna grow into their own forest. What does it mean to develop deep roots in this analogy? What most people think it looks like is going viral to get more seeds. Or it looks like being controversial so they get more seeds. They start to make their decisions based on how many seeds they can get from everybody else's forest. And I say you're always gonna be dependent on other platforms. You're always gonna be dependent on ads, always dependent on going viral until you take those seeds and you plant them and you start making your own forest. That means deep roots. And that looks like doing the unscalable things for a while that don't get a lot of attention. It means building real one-to-one connections. It means developing trust with the people who do follow your work. It means watering the seeds that you do have rather than focusing on the people that are not paying attention to you. In other words, if you put out a piece of content and 10 people are paying attention, it means you water those 10 seeds, not wonder how we get more people to see our stuff. Now that I have beaten this analogy into your head, annoyingly so, and you have stuck with me anyway, I will now turn it over into how we do this tactically, how we create a structure to be able to both get attention from these public platforms, but also bring them into a process that builds relationship and also turns it into money. And when we do that, we can get a really big audience with public attention, and we can build depth of connection, and we can use that to make a lot more profit. Let's talk about that now. Our process for doing this is called the traffic triangle. It's called the traffic triangle because I'm in the Illuminati, and I know the secrets to building a multi-million-dollar audience. That's so dumb. That's so dumb. Why are you still here? Why are you still watching? The traffic triangle has 3 parts, like most triangles do. Traffic is where we create content to get attention. This is that part where we're trying to leverage the exposure that comes from public platforms. The second part is what we call the hopper. This is where we are building community and we're building deep relationships. And the third part is conversion. This is where we're asking for the sale. In all 3 of these parts of the triangle, we can get free attention from the platforms. But when we do all 3 parts together, it's within our control. And that way, we are not dependent on the platforms giving us free traffic. We actually control the traffic. We can even control how much visibility we get on our content. And we can control how aggressively we build the audience versus nurture the audience. When you put all 3 of these pieces together, you have an audience that wants to buy your stuff without creating a lot of content and without being dependent on the platforms giving you free attention. Let's go into how the traffic triangle works and how it turns into money. In order to understand this, you have to understand the 2 rules of audience building. The first rule is the rule of 3. When you see someone in 3 different places, this is where the brain sort of accepts them, trusts them. The analogy that I use is if you work with somebody, they're a coworker. If you go out for drinks afterwards, they're a coworker you go drinking with. But then if they come over and watch the game, now they're a friend. They have now broken the context in which you have placed them, and now they are a personal connection. So if a prospect or a follower sees us in 3 different places, then we have broken the context for which they've seen us, and now we are a trusted part of their content consumption or their life even. They now have a bond with us if they see us in 3 different places. That's why in the triangle, we have 3 different places where we interact with our following without it requiring us to repurpose content across multiple platforms. We can actually go deeper into the relationship and the experience that someone has with us. This second rule is the rule of 7 hours. Once you spend 7 hours with someone, you feel ready to take the next step. This was based on some studies that were done in dating psychology that analyzed how long it took for someone to take the next step with someone they were interested in. And the most common answer was 7 hours. And it didn't matter if that was 7 one-hour dates or if that was 3 2.5-hour dates. So some of you need to go on some longer dates. So if we can get our prospects to see us in 3 different places and they spend 7 hours or more with us, then we have built really deep roots. This is somebody who is probably going to want to do business with us, is likely to share our content and consume it ongoing, and is going to be a raving fan or even an ambassador of the business. That's what we want. It takes a lot of Instagram reels and a lot of TikTok videos to get the 7-hour rule. And if we're only on one platform, then we're not in line with the rule of 3 either. We need to do both of these things, and that means that we're not gonna be able to do it over hundreds of thousands of people. We're gonna have to do it with a few hundred people. But as we've already discussed, a few hundred people can completely change a business. Certainly within a few months. I feel called to remind you here. Almost nobody's gonna do this. Your competitors aren't gonna do this. 90% of the people watching this or listening to this aren't gonna do this. The really big companies, definitely not gonna do this. So if you prioritize this over a few months, whether you are first starting out or if you're an established multi-million-dollar business that has neglected your audience building, either way, this is the way that you build really long-term customers that line up to buy your stuff and support every launch of every product and follow you to every platform and subscribe to your monthly offering and are your highest margin customers. Let me give you a few examples of what each one of these pieces looks like, and then I'm gonna give you the daily process that we follow that builds your audience, builds your profits, expands your sales, and gives you loyal customers. First, traffic is where we get exposure. This is where we pick one platform where we're going to make very simple content. And by the end of this training, you will see that you do not need to create a lot of content. You don't need to show your face. You don't need to make long videos. You just need to follow a very specific process and pick one platform where you're gonna nurture some exposure. The second is your hopper. This is where we're building a community. The best place, because it's the simplest, is a Facebook group. This is where people can engage with you, you see their faces, and there are the opportunities to do things like go live and spend longer periods of time with the people who are in your community. And then the third is conversion. This is always building an email list. This is where we ask for the sale. And the beauty of this is that email is still to this day the highest converting mechanism of all distribution on the internet. It's way higher than social media. It's higher than text. It's higher than long form videos. Making the call to action in an email is the highest converting platform. So when you promote a product to your email list and you take that outside traffic and you bring it to something like Amazon.com, Amazon rewards that because you're sending high converting traffic over to its platform. And this is how we start to get free exposure from the platforms like Amazon. When we put these 3 pieces together, we build our email list, we build exposure, and we're building depth all at the same time. And it doesn't take long until that is a very engaged, highly profitable audience. So let's talk about what we do on a daily basis to grow this audience, how we engage with them regularly to keep them coming back, and how we do it in a cool and ethical way that doesn't require us to create a lot of content or be addicted to our phones. We call this next process the flywheel. And this is very simply a 90-minute to 2-hour per day process to build your audience and turn it into money. And I would argue that if you did only this, your business would grow. You can forget about pretty much everything else until you're doing at least $50,000 a month in sales. Because if you do only the flywheel and you use it to build your traffic triangle, you'll have an audience that supports your business into at least the mid 6 figures, probably the low 7 figures. In this flywheel, we spend 2 hours engaging with our audience in some way. For the first 30 minutes, we ask what type of content would create the most engaged buyers. Not the most virality, not the most attention, but would bring us the most buyers. And the answer to that question is almost always proof. What is proof? Proof is reviews on your product. It is people saying nice things about your product. It's the text message with your friend, with them telling you that they're using your product. It's the case study with that client or customer that's having a good experience using your product. It is celebrities or influencers talking about similar products or ingredients that you have in your product. If you have no proof, if you have no one talking about you, you can still build proof by talking about the problem that your product solves. We spend 30 minutes gathering proof from our customers, from our followers, from the media. And then we spend the next 30 minutes posting that proof to one platform. That gives us the social proof that what we're doing matters, that we're making an impact. With that piece of content, we link that over to however we're collecting and building our email list. The easiest ways to do this are giving away a coupon, putting people into a VIP list, a first in line waiting list, or it could even be just the first step to your checkout process. We judge if a piece of content is successful, not by how many views it gets, but by how many leads it generates. So now we have 2 parts of the traffic triangle starting to build. Now the next step of the process is that we spend 30 minutes building relationships with the people following our content. This means every day we reach out to 3 people who follow our content, 3 people who are engaged reading our emails, 3 customers that were asking for reviews. Do you see how this is all building on each other? If we're spending a little bit of time every day reaching out to a few people who have bought from us and we're asking for feedback, we're planting the seeds for the next round of proof. When I taught this class last week, I shared with our members that what gets celebrated gets repeated. So if you are celebrating reviews, if you're celebrating proof, you will get more of it. So if you're doing this publicly and then you reach out to people on a regular basis asking for proof, they will give it to you. And so we spend the third chunk of 30 minutes reaching out to people who are following our content. And in the fourth chunk of 30 minutes, we are now going to engage with our community. And a really easy way to start doing that is to link from our email list over to the Facebook group, going live, creating posts for them, creating content for them. We now have a community that is engaging with us, and we very quickly start to build into the 7-hour rule. And so now we've got everything starting to connect. Here's a really cool ninja tip. The posts in your hopper become the content that you post publicly. I love this part. If you're getting good momentum in your group, if you're having people say positive things about you, it becomes the content that you post about publicly, which then links people over to your product and invites them into the group and over again. This is how we build an audience that wants to buy our stuff. They see us in multiple places, they spend a lot of time with us, they are engaging with us as a brand and each other, and it only takes a few weeks or a few months to have a solid audience of a few hundred people that will buy everything that we sell forever and ever until kingdom come. If you're still here, I know that this is super in the weeds. I'm throwing a lot of intel at you because I'm trying to summarize a 6-hour class in about 20 minutes or so. If you want to see more about how we do this, you can get resources and the links around this piece of content. But the main takeaway that I want you to know is that if you spend some time building real, genuine relationships with the people who are paying attention, to the people who are watching your content or following your work, those are the people that become buyers. And if we continue to water that seed, those buyers become the positive feedback that we use to get more buyers. And the cycle starts to perpetuate in a positive way. This is how we get off the hamster wheel of trying to keep up with the algorithms. We use the algorithms to get the exposure to the people that we can truly be present for and truly serve. And when they have a positive experience, they become the social proof that goes out and gets everybody else. We don't skip that step of connecting with the few people who are paying attention. Most entrepreneurs will try to go big before they've earned the right to do so. You earn the right to do so by focusing on that very small group of people and ensuring that they have a wonderful experience with however you serve them. That is how we build an audience. No one gets to skip the service part of audience building, but most people try to. And that's why if you do this well, you will beat almost everyone who is just out there hawking products. I'm Daniel Moran. My business is helping entrepreneurs launch brands, get to the first million, and have a multi-million-dollar exit. If you would like my help, you can find free resources around this content. Thank you for giving me your time and attention and making it to the end of this piece of content. And if I can serve you on your journey, I'd consider it a privilege. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.